Miss Junie Fu, President, Singapore Council Women's Organization, SCWO, an illustrious Hainanese granddaughter. Professor Tommy Koh, Chair, Singapore Women's Hall of Fame Selection Panel. Distinguished guests, good morning. Junie just said that this occasion is about the different ways we are beautiful. And indeed, before I came up to this rostrum, I had a little bit of a throat irritation, and what a different reception I had. There was a flutter of activity on my left, and June got a glass of lemon and honey, and then Laura took something out of a bag with some very sort of frightening, crinkly sounds, which was some kind of special lozenge. And Dr. Jennifer Lee had a quick look to make sure medicinally okay. So indeed, it's a different kind of beautiful world we hope to build. I think this rostrum, this platform was put there because I think somebody who accompanies me a lot was concerned of my stature. But he forgets that this is a platform to elevate women. Many of us don't need that. Thank you. Well, distinguished guests, we stand inspired by the zeal and energy of the SCWO and the many women's organizations in Singapore within your umbrella, in your work for gender equality in Singapore, for equal space, equal voice, and equal worth. Let's think. Equal space, equal voice, equal worth. Junie has spoken eloquently and pointedly about each, and we all know there is more to be done to get there. We know that getting there requires actions. The white paper on Singapore's women's development, which was unanimously endorsed in Parliament in 2022, outlined 25 action plans to be implemented over 10 years through partnerships between government, community, employers, and others. But we all also know that the success of these action plans requires a culture shift that enables us to break free of the norms and stereotypes that limit our choices, the choices of girls and women, and indeed of boys and men too. The work of the SCWO and your members is helping bring about this culture shift, chipping away at the norms and stereotypes, and slowly but surely expanding women's ambitions. The stories of inspiring women who we honor in the Singapore Women's Hall of Fame tell every girl, and it is the girls that count, that paths exist and new paths can be created for women to play leading roles. Of the 10 women so honored today, I will, in the interest of time, and please forgive me, highlight what 3 of them brought to us. Each of them pioneers at a time when the obstacles for women were much higher than they are today. First, Tan Si Lai. Si Lai was always a step ahead of her times. She championed the use of educational technology in our schools as one of the Education Ministry's pioneer TV producers in 1967. Before then, Si Lai had, as many of us will remember, been our first woman newscaster when television came to Singapore in the 1960s. Second, Sylvia Toh. Sylvia got us to think, laugh, and express ourselves in our own way. She was the first to document and celebrate Singlish, and it helped us to be comfortable in the skin of our own spoken rojak, our real-life social media, as it were. Miss Toh, Sylvia, was a leading humorist and is still at it in her online columns. Third, Hadijah Rahmat. Hadijah Rahmat's contributions were valuable in a different way. Her seminal research documented everyday life on the ground, specifically the social histories of our kampongs for posterity. Kampongs had to make way as we developed, but it will do us well to remember the values and culture that went with kampong life, common to many of us at the time. Hadijah was also persuasive in getting mother tongue language teachers to learn the culture and literature of other ethnic groups. That is so important in our multicultural development. Yet, today, on International Women's Day, we are not only honoring women who, despite the obstacles they faced, have created paths of their own. We are reflecting too on how paths can be opened to all and by all so that we can create what ultimately matters, a better society and a more humane world. March the 8th, that's today, was chosen by the United Nations half a century ago as a day when we not only celebrate women's achievements, but also recognize that the full participation and equality of women in social, economic, and political life is needed for social progress and peace everywhere, to which we must add humanity's ability to save the planet we live in. International Women's Day, therefore, doesn't only celebrate how women hold up half the sky, it points to a larger ambition, which must be to make better lives possible by clearing the storms from the sky. The terrible wars, the violence within societies, the choked aspirations of many, and the runaway climate crisis. And that it requires critically the full participation of women and the shift in values that women can bring through their leadership. We can take inspiration from Noeline Heyzer, the highest ranking Singaporean in the UN system, who dedicated her life to opening spaces for dialogue and change to advance equity, social justice, and sustainable development for people and for planet. So it is not just for the sake of form. Numbers do matter, but it's not just for that sake. That we want to see more women leaders in the corporate sector, in the community, and in politics. It is the shift in values that women would bring to decision-making that we hope will help us create good societies and a more cooperative and humane world. The values that International Women's Day advocates help to chart the course. International Women's Day itself has sort of carefully chosen 10 values, and I wish to highlight 3. The values dignity and respect for all, so that everyone is valued and diversity is appreciated. The value empathy, or putting ourselves in the shoes or slippers or bare feet of others, even those across the world, and treating others as we ourselves would wish to be treated. And the value justice, so that every individual is treated fairly and ethically at work, in the community, and at home, so that no winner takes all. Let's imagine, would the world be in such a sorry state if women were fully represented in decision-making? Would we have the awful wars that we see within and between nations, the sexual violence against girls and women that remains at epidemic level, the denial of a decent education and a future for hundreds of millions of children, the half-hearted efforts to avoid the looming catastrophes of the climate crisis? Let's imagine if women were fully represented in decision-making. We remind ourselves today of what is possible, to start to act, even if it means something small, but to think big, take inspiration from the Hall of Fame honorees, share and propagate the values that take us outside our usual boundaries, the values about caring for others, and aim for greater heights of both personal and social achievement among boys and girls from every background. Let's imagine the shift in values if women were fully represented in decision-making. And we remind ourselves of the words of Bridget Tan, who was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2015, and who sadly left us a few years ago. And I quote her words: "For me, social justice is the responsibility of each and every person. The strong must help the weak. The rich must help the poor. Those who are knowledgeable should help those who aren't. We all have a part to play. Thank you, Bridget Tang. We can spread those values, make them our culture. Thank you.